Hi, everyone. So today I'm going to be talking about guerrilla marketing, a way to promote yourself in maybe some unusual ways. So give me a sec. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so here we go. So there is a group called the Guerrilla Girls, and they've been operating even since the late 80s, even the close to the 70s. And nobody knows exactly who they are. They always wear these gorilla masks, and they kind of subvert situations. This is a poster that they created and posted all over New York City. Any of you that have been to New York City know about all the posters that get posted everywhere with kind of this flower paste. And this was just one of them to kind of protest the lack of female artists represented in the Metropolitan Museum. So it was a form of guerrilla marketing. So what is guerrilla marketing? So it's really kind of a strategy. It could be called advertising. It could be called self-promotion that focuses on an affordable, kind of a low cost hack to market yourself that is somewhat unconventional, but it yields some interesting results. Of course, this name is inspired by guerrilla warfare, which is a form of irregular warfare that uses small tactical strategies. And those are things like ambushes, sabotage, raids, but the biggest thing is the element of surprise. And so how can you use the idea of guerrilla marketing to actually promote or market yourself? And that is the question. So here's the core things to consider. What's the key message you want to impart? Is it simply about your work, or is it about something you care about, a cause or some kind of issue that you want to bring to the forefront? Who is your audience and where can you reach them? Think about where you can infiltrate their space and what device or action could you use to communicate with? What results do you want? So if you really can answer these questions, it really provides the backbone to planning a guerrilla marketing campaign. All right, so we all remember this key message, who you are, what you do, and how you do it, right? But let's add a call to action. How, if you put out a tangible object or action in the public space, how can you incorporate all these things and include a call to action so that someone might visit a website, your website, come see a show, whatever it is that you want them to do. What action or object could sum all this up and inspire your audience to want to know more or seek out more information? So I think in this kind of a promotion, you have to meet people where they live, so to speak. So here's some ideas to think about. First and Third Friday, of course, we all know about this on Roosevelt Row and also on Grand Avenue. Sports events, sorry, I'm going to change those dates when I post this online, but those dates are not relevant here. Sports events, gallery openings, venue events like something going on at Scottsdale Center for the Arts or Mesa Arts Center, public restrooms, walkways, sidewalks, public right-of-ways, festivals or civic events. You could do something on campus right here at MCC. There could be a club or a professional organization event that you kind of bomb, so to speak, or maybe the US mail. So for this assignment, I don't want you to do an Instagram campaign. You can drive someone to an Instagram page or site or drive them to your website. But this is not an online digital campaign. This is something that that might drive you there, but it doesn't originate on Instagram or on Facebook, or even on your website. So here's some key characteristics of a guerrilla marketing strategy. So it's resourceful with limited time and limited money. You could think in multiples. So you put many things out to reach different people in different places. An element of surprise. So someone's going about their business and they run into something inspiring or fun or funny or inspirational or just something that disrupts their day. It could be humorous, fun. It contrasts with the normal environment. So is that with color or shape or an unusual object, or even yourself as a performer? What's the visual impact, and what can you do to disrupt the normal course of events? Is someone's walking down the street or walking across campus or even doing something in the library? We'll see some ideas in a moment. So here's some inspirations that have been done more professionally. So I'll run through these pretty quickly. This is the normal kind of tear off poster idea, but these use it in something a little bit different. So this is just using it with visual imagery to get someone to think about a haircut. This is using the keys of the piano, but then these ones here are really just good wishes. Like people can, it's kind of an inspirational idea. I appreciate you, good job. Some kind of motivating comments that someone can rip off and have for the day. So that's an idea there. This is kind of the ultimate tearaway. This was actually done for an exhibition on Andy Warhol. So you see here at the top, that's how it started out. And as the exhibition went on, people could tear off a piece and take it with them as kind of a souvenir from, like a poster from the show. And that was all part of the presentation. Post-it notes, you could put post-it notes up to create a texture or imagery. I love these kind of digital type kind of pixelated images, and they're all post-it notes. And then there's something on the post-it note if someone takes it. Now you might think, oh, printing would be so expensive. But another way to think about it is you can get a rubber stamp and stamp it. So, you know, putting post-it notes somewhere with messages on could be a really interesting idea. Maybe it's in a parking lot. Maybe it's on the bulletin board. Maybe it's in the public restroom on the mirror. So there's lots of places you can think about. This is a project done by an artist, Michael Perserno, and it's really just, again, some lovely inspirational and motivational quotes and signage. So he just did a whole variety of these typographical signs and put them up in the city. That's all there is to it. You could drive someone to your website, but it's also just something to do. It's something to watch. Maybe you sit and you watch how people react. And this can be put anywhere. It could be downtown, it could be on campus, anywhere. So another idea to think about. This is a project done by Candy Chang, and she did these kind of almost like a name tag, but instead of your name, it says, I wish this was. So she would post them on maybe an abandoned building or, you know, something that needed repair, and people would fill in what they wish this space was instead of what it was at that point. She did these all over in different places. QR codes are a great way to drive someone somewhere. So this is an example of just doing a stencil and spray painting it, and have people, you know, make sure the contrast is enough, but people can actually be walking along and use their phone and scan it. If you need some guidance with QR codes, I can send you to a site where it's really easy to generate your own QR code. And this is a piece that I did where I actually embroidered the QR code. So it can be done in a lot of ways and still be functional. This is another QR code campaign, but they're all made from Legos. So this was a campaign done in bus shelters, advertising cabinets, and they were all built out of Legos. And speaking of Legos, what if you did a street bomb with Legos and filling in spaces, cracks, whatever, or you build little Lego things and put them somewhere for people to discover. And we all know about yarn bombing. It's been done quite a bit, but it's still really interesting when it happens. So that's, if you're a knitter or a crocheter, that might be an option for you to think about. Chair bombing, where you actually create a group. You put out some chairs and you have a discussion group, maybe right in the middle of campus, and it creates attention and people walk up and say, what's going on here? And you invite people into your circle to talk about a particular issue or subject. You might have some business cards or some kind of printed material that gives people more information. And this could be on any kind of issue. You know, maybe it's fast fashion, or it's, you know, kind of the homeless community in your area, something like that. You could create kind of this circle that people get curious about and want to join. You can always think about art in odd places. These are all done with string in various different ways. So just another thing to think about. Mirrors in odd places. So it's really interesting what happens with mirrors, because obviously they're going to reflect what is above them, and it might not be the same as what they're sitting on. And so it gives you this unexpected kind of surprise in the middle of a situation or a place. So it's something to think about. And we've got some examples of someone that's done something later. And this is a performance given by Erin Sotak it was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, for Art Prize. And she had this coat that said give and take. And it was all about just, you know, being kind and giving and taking and telling stories. So you can think about a public performance if you want. Here's more ideas for public performances. Here I am crocheting on my couch, but it was in downtown Phoenix in a parking spot. I was crocheting a cover for the whole parking spot with caution tape, kind of speaking to, you know, environmental issues. Free hugs that you give. This is really relevant these days with this face mask. And so maybe that's something that you wear around in public, or do something with that. All right, and these are chalk on sidewalks. So again, you can create interest and attention by actually drawing on the sidewalk. And keep in mind, these are all flat drawings, which this one's pretty amazing. It looks so dimensional, and same with this one, but it's all just literally drawn flat on the sidewalk. And so it's a way to cause attention and maybe drive people to your art. Steps, stairs are something to think about. Affecting in some way, just another way to think about putting a message out in space somewhere. And a lot of you might know about Andy Goldsworthy and his kind of environmental sculptures. And here's another person, Cal Lane, who does these environmental drawings with a stencil, but creates these lace patterns with nothing more than dirt. So it's something really interesting. You could create a stencil, get some dirt, and actually make an image on the sidewalk that's non-damaging and might make a statement for some reason, some way. Here's just a bunch of different takeaway objects, balloons, fortune cookies, either real or made, business cards, maybe with seeds that people can plant, interesting matchbooks, buttons are another thing to think about. So just some different takeaway items that might come into play in your thinking. All right, so I'm going to quickly run through some student work so you can feel like maybe, okay, here's something that's accessible. Now, I will say that this presentation shows implemented projects. For this assignment, you are not going to need to implement it, but you're going to have to write a very comprehensive and descriptive plan and description of what you would do. You have the option of implementing it for extra credit. We'll talk about dates and times in a minute. So here's a project that the student did where she, kind of put some inspirational quotes or comments for people to find, and she went into the library and just tucked them into random books. So her little notes might be found today, and they might be found 5 years from now. Who knows? So something really interesting, and she actually put her contact information on the back of these cards, which you could do. You guys might remember Cormac with some of the identity materials that I've already shown. So what he did is he made a CD, and he left the CD free in coffee shops, and it drove people not only to his website with the use of this QR code, but they were able to listen to his actual audio work on these CDs. This was a person that did bookmarks, and she worked for Changing Hands Bookstore. So she, talked to the owners and asked if she could put this easel out, and people wrote, what was the title of your favorite book? And so people would write their favorite title and get a bookmark. This is another artist who I've shown to you, who really was into cactus. So she posted these little plant markers all around campus, showing what the plant was. And so we certainly have that opportunity here at MCC, and she made it an artistic expression by stitching some of the images that she used, and then also used the name and her website to drive people there to see more work. This was done by an architectural student using pallet wood, and so he created this free little library that he actually put out on campus and put some books in, and he kind of used his logo and what he did and see my story at the creative at Weebly.com. So he had a website, and he made this free little library. This is Lucy Urban. She did these beautiful little string drawings on plant forms. So there, she just went all around campus again and just created these little webs on the top of plants, on plants, around trees, and she hung a tag that would then direct people to her website. And we talked about mirrors earlier. So this student actually went to an NCECA conference, which is a national conference for ceramics. And she made these mirrors with her website on them. And then she had this bird image that was part of her identity. So she laid those mirrors out in this shape. And as people went back and forth to the events of the conference, they would see her identity, and kind of see this beautiful sky reflected on the ground with the mirrors that she used. This person drew on these little packets with seeds in them and hung them from trees. Again, in a public area. You could do this on campus. You could do it in your neighborhood. just be sure, that you think it through as to how well it might work and where you're going to reach people. This was done by actually a dance student who was really into marketing dance companies. And so this was her idea, was to create these big faces and take pictures of people, and had her identity on the other side. This guy was a stand-up comic. And so he actually made these images of his silly face with his tongue out and a QR code, and just hung them all over. And so this was all about, his comedy and trying to get a booking. And this, you might have remembered her. She's a metalsmith. So she made these shapes, and she actually hung them in trees on campus, and it directed people to her website. This was a design student, and he was totally into coffee. So he made these cards, put them in a bag of coffee so they would have the scent of coffee, and he put a page all about the different coffees types on his website. So he just laid them out in, study areas, computer labs, restrooms, whatever, and drove people to his site. And then it also drove them to his design site as well. Not only this page about coffee, but his overall site as well. Again, this was something that was left out in public spaces, study areas. You can see here like an eating area. And this person was talking about, she was a fashion design major, and she was just talking about using, not using real fur, but using fake fur. And again, it drove people to her website and to read more about it, but also to her website to see more of her work. This woman was into synesthesia, which is when you apply colors to either letters or numbers. And so she actually hung these cards that were all about how words can translate into, what color does ice cream taste like? Is the letter A always red? And so it would have a little explanation on the back, and she just hung them on lockers throughout the hallways. This was unusual. This was a jewelry maker, and he took pictures of his products as if they were being worn, and put them in restrooms of bars and places where people that were drawn to his kind of work would go. And so you could try it on in the mirror, you could try on the necklace, you could try on the bracelet. And the one interesting thing he did was he had this questionnaire that he kind of hung around and asked people, and got some data about the products that he was showing. So it's kind of interesting. Again, this is a stencil that someone has used, the stencil with chalk, and just kind of making this subtle imprint on sidewalks. She didn't really have too much tie back to communicating with her, so that was the weakness, but it did create curiosity when someone's just walking along and seeing this graphic out of the blue. 3D glasses with this business card that was actually done with a 3D print. And this was given out at a particular print conference that this fellow went to. So people could see his card, see the glasses, and just get a different kind of perspective and view of his business card. This guy was a printmaker, and he put these posters up around campus, and on this QR code, he did a whole video of how to make a lithograph, and it was really quite well done. So he was just driving people to his site to talk about how a lithograph is made. This person left these coloring book pages around campus, and you could go online to her website and download free coloring book pages if you wanted. And so this was all about, kind of disenfranchised groups, and kind of bringing them to the forefront. And actually the idea of coloring them was part of the concept. This student did create an Instagram page, but paired with that were these little clips or markers. They're just made out of paper, and they were actually put on bike spokes. And it's just all about the things that you can do to be green. So every day or every week, he would post a new little post about, you can recycle your cans or bottles, take your bike, use reusable bags. So it was a way to start a conversation about little things that we can all do to enhance the environment. So he chose to put it on in the spokes of bikes all around campus. This student used the opportunity to promote himself by actually doing a painting in public. So he went downtown and he found this fellow that was quite a character, and he knew about him. And so he sells these necklaces and bracelets down in downtown Phoenix. So this is the student, and he did a live painting while this fellow was doing his thing. And at the same time, he had other paintings out, and he had a brochure that people could take to drive them to his website to see other paintings that he had done. This student did these cups and coasters for her brother to drive them to his website. So she designed this rubber stamp and his Instagram address, and got permission from local bars and taverns to put these in their, for them to serve their drinks in and use as coasters. So, and I think this was all done in downtown Tucson. So she had some relationships with some of these businesses. This student actually kind of did an Andy Goldsworthy thing where she made these really lovely installations outside. Once again, what I would suggest is, if you do this, to include a tag or some kind of way that people can then visit your website. But I do feel that she did a wonderful job of bringing, other colors into a natural environment and create that surprise when people are just walking by. This student created buttons, place that she worked about adopting animals versus buying them. So buttons are a way to, they're fairly inexpensive. See me if you need some resources. I can always help you with that. And it's a fun way to get your point across. This student made zines, and so this particular piece was just a tiny little zine to tell people how you can make a zine about anything. So she would leave these places, even in the math building or the science building, so that people could decide to make their own zine about, a famous female scientist or whatever they wanted. So it was really more of a kind of a tutorial on how to make a zine about anything. And this is a different zine that a student made, but she left them in bars and taverns and cafes and coffee shops. So people could color them, just take them and enjoy the imagery inside. And of course, it drove them to her website. This student actually did a stop motion video animation of dance moves. So, and then posted it on YouTube for people to see. So if that's something you're doing, if you're doing animation or video, you can utilize that as well. And the way that she promoted it was she put these little guys all around campus, and on the back of them was the YouTube website that you could go to see her video. This student actually staged a performance on campus, got permission to do it, and put out Facebook ads. He had posters. He had a big banner that he used so that he could promote himself. So, and he actually even had he was introducing a brand new piece that he did, a new EP, and he posted that on SoundCloud as well. So he really did a very comprehensive, as you can see, visual campaign to drive people to come to his concert. All right, so now it's your turn. We are going to do this. I'm presenting this to you early. I'm presenting the whole concept of this assignment to you during module 1, so that it gives you just some more time. As I told you before, you can look at the specifics of the assignment, but you're only going to be required to document your ideas, and that is through written narrative and, I hope, photographs, sketches, mock-ups, whatever. If you decide to implement your project, you must do it and document it by the end of class, which is 10-11. So the 3 steps would be, there'll be a discussion assignment posted, and I'll remind you of that, but it'll be posted, and you'll have, kind of a tickler in Canvas, and that's due 9/13, and that will be part of your grade, doing that discussion assignment. And then your final document, your project document, would be due on 9/27. And I want, just like on your portfolios, this needs to be one cohesive document that is saved as a PDF. And if you need to compress it, you can use small PDF, and post it on Canvas. So make sure that imagine that you're proposing this to the city of Phoenix for a art project, or you're proposing it to a restaurant to do this project. Whatever it is, put together a package that contains your ID, is cohesive and well-written and well-documented as to what you want to do. All right, I'm going to come back to you here. And so that's it. You say hello to Theo. He's waiting and watching back behind me. And we'll talk more about this in class, but hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll talk soon.